Welcome, everyone, to Osquery Office Hours this November 24th, coming up on Thanksgiving. And I notice in my own little picture here, I have an Osquery Challenge coin. Facebook made these for the first QueryConf. So, random bit of interesting desk detritus. People might remember those. Perhaps several other people on this call have them.
I have one. Stefan also has one. We were given them in a really sneaky way with a secret handshake by Nick.
Yeah. I think from Teddy or Nick, but
yeah.
So I don't know. I feel very proud of it. Lives there next to the owl. Anyhow, welcome everyone. Announcements, highlights. I don't really have anything. It's been kind of a quiet couple of weeks. Cool.
Yeah. Mostly we broke the CI again, but we managed to fix it. System support was merged, so we have something inside now that kind of works. That's nice.
And EC2 tables now have Windows support.
That's right.
Oh yeah, that was a big request from people.
That always seemed like a thing that we should just do.
And extensions have gone from badly broken to better. Mostly that's working on our side, but I think there were a couple of PRs in core.
Oh yeah, mostly to restore, because we had some examples for the extensions, but they were never built automatically, and they would sometimes go out of date and break. So we finally have them inside the project by default, so hopefully they will keep working.
Mm-hmm.
Someone fixed a deadlock when there were two extensions. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that last office hours, weren't we?
Well, it was merged since the last office hours.
I remember talking about the bug. Yeah.
Yeah, but we still have the get overlapped result error on Windows that we have to silence.
We decide if we want to silence that or if we want to try upgrading Thrift or just kind of silence it until we can figure out how to replace Thrift.
So I have tried to upgrade to the latest Thrift, and the generated code didn't change too much. It looked almost the same. So I don't think we can easily fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, Stefan knows more about this, but historically this was, it is an error that was always there, but with a define, it was disabled. So I think Stefan was proposing to keep the error in there, but by default silence it with a new flag. So we can still access it if we want. Is it correct, Stefano?
Yeah. Originally, also in the issue, I've spoken about only the verbose flag, but indeed, if you have that kind of error, it is a bit too noisy together with the rest of the verbose thing you have, so it might be better to further restrict it.
Yeah, I tried to use the shell on Windows, and with this, with the verbose setting, it was literally unusable. I couldn't even see the input I was writing.
I think if I would certainly approve work that did that. Like I'd approve a PR that did that. I think at some point we'll have to like grapple with the number of flags we have and how to sort of bubble them up in reasonable ways. But I don't know that has to be today.
Yeah, I think specifically that kind of flag is something developer side, so a user shouldn't be necessarily interested in, because, yeah.
Do you think that's ever a thing you'd run developer side? That seems like the kind of thing that's more of a runtime, actually. Excuse me, more of a compile time, not a runtime.
Which, so enabling it. Well, so my point there was mainly since this might be can be an error that is shown because there's something wrong happening, not in this specific case, but you can ask a customer, a user, to enable it. So it's something you can suggest and to be able to troubleshoot without having to give them a new build.
I guess if y'all think it's valuable and you deal with plenty of customers, then I'm happy to kind of roll with it. Given the amount of them that we see that are just sort of false positives, or at least we think they're false positives or nothing to be done, then, you know, if you run with it now and you just get hosed by that error, then like, how would it ever help you debugging?
Yeah, to be fair though, I don't recall. Alessandro knows more if we have tried to, because this error is, in theory, is caused by the fact that, again, we open a new connection each time we try it. We want to ping the extension, and since this connection is quickly closed, so it doesn't seem to be closed in the kosher way, correct way, and so the Windows side complains. I mean, I have a suspect that. So it's not an issue, major issue or anything, but I think there is a way to, at least in the correct usage case, to not have it throw or show that kind of error.
I have tried to change the code to request a shutdown, but it didn't work. Like, okay. The way that it works, at least for the C++ generator, is really strange. Like there's an stdout output whenever someone connects to the socket, which is something you would never do in a library, usually, like automatically print things like that. I have no idea why it works this way.
So, yeah, I think that... I mean, I'm almost changing idea in the sense that what you said, Seth, might be, I mean, maybe we can really just disable it at compile time and then...
I'm mostly thinking like, if you're ever at a point where you're actively debugging it, you can just remove the compile time squelch.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because Osquery side, I did see it. It wasn't that noisy, but yeah, if together with the extension, yeah, doubles it, or it's even worse, then yeah, it's not useful.
I actually tried that by launching the extension on its own, and yeah, it is worse on the extension side, but also on the Osquery side, whenever there's this ping function that just connects to the socket every time, and every time you get this error again. So yeah, it's not great.
I mean, this is maybe a really naive question. Does connection pooling make any sense? Like, can we keep a connection open? Does that even make sense on a local socket?
I have tried, and of course it will not generate as much output. But I guess that the reason it was made like this is because the extension may disappear, and I think they just thought about reconnecting over and over again.
Also,
I mean, there is supposed to be some kind of handshake whenever you connect, at least on the thrift side. And maybe it was done like this so that you would notice if the extension became unresponsive.
I mean, if all the signs say that we need to keep the functionality, then we should just squelch the error until we have a better answer.
Yeah, there is no better answer. We should try and go away from thrift. We have taken a look at the FB thrift fork, which is way more active, but it comes with a huge C++ library similar to Boost. which is named Folly, that we would have to import. And I'm not sure how it is written build system-wise. It may not be easy to import it. And it would be nice to move to something else that we know works better for other languages as well.
And I feel like moving away from Thrift is a pretty long-term thing. That'd be a major, certainly a major bump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could keep Thrift around for the transition process while we implement a better way to communicate.
Something, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I feel like Thrift is kind of a pain in the neck. It feels, I'm not sure it's real widely used outside of Facebook. So,
or even maintained. At least Apache Thrift.
I think it might be used, but I think the major problem is that it's a bit on the heavy side, like for the use, especially for the use we have. So obviously, it's not always easy to write code for, fault tolerant to always properly detect that something has gone away or restarted. RPCs, etc. But we have also pretty stable API between Osquery and the extensions, and so I think I don't see any great cost in having something somewhat hand-rolled one time, because like with Drift, you get the fact that you should be able to easily add new things. Your RPC easily connect functions, etc., etc. But that kind of speed comes at a cost in how heavy is the library, how well written or generated is the code, etc.
yeah, I mean, I understand why Facebook did it, right? Like if you've got a bunch of internal microservices, you just standardize on a library. But Osquery doesn't have that problem, so we should, either we stick with Thrift or we pick a different one, or maybe you're right, maybe we just hand roll a thing. I think the thing that worries me most about hand rolling a thing is it makes it harder to spin up new languages unless we have a very simple text protocol.
Yeah, I mean, even there, so I'm not too much into code generation. I don't, in the sense that I don't like too much, because then when you have to debug it, it's very fun. But not only that, so I don't understand why I do and I don't, why they have that model, why they cannot do one base implementation with, I know, say, a small one, and then have that on top, and have the various language implementation on top. It wouldn't be, I don't think it would be massive for each language to support its own.
But not all languages can compile in C. I mean, it's nice to have pure Go. I can't speak to Rust either, right?
Yeah.
So
it risks breaking static binaries. That's another issue I've seen, at least with Rust.
So one of the things there, right, is like if everything is a C API that things link to, then it's harder. Like one of the things, like we're getting into theory, right? But if you think about database protocols are usually a library that you link against, right? And there's standard linkages there. There's no wire protocol that makes it easy to support. And I find that very, very hard to work with, because if the particular thing I'm doing doesn't have support for the particular database I'm working with, I'm just out of luck. Like there's no way I can make a half-assed, wire protocol for Postgres. Osquery is granted a lot simpler, but like the C libraries have just, I don't know. I like wire protocols. We could probably put down the Thrift rock, but if people want to like play with the idea of other things, I feel like the first question is, do we want to support network transport? And I'm not sure we do. think it's reasonable to scope it to a Unix file system socket. And then, I don't know, do we want to hand roll one? Do we want to play with protobufs? Do you want to play with, what are the other ones? Captain Crunch, is that one?
Yeah.
There's a couple.
We could maybe start on the opposite side, see what we can easily use from Go and Rust. And
All
then
of them.
mathematics to Osquery.
They're all not terrible, and they're all code gen-y, so it's, how much do you like code gen? I must wonder, I feel like one of the things that maybe makes this hard is I feel like our thrift stuff is not real well maintained. Like, I don't even know when we touched the thrift spec last, and I don't.
It's just a container for us. That is the weird thing. We are using thrift as a transport, but everything we do is in JSON. Pretty much everything, right? Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, thrift deals with basically, I call it fault tolerance. I mean, so the connection, the fact that it gives you server-client model.
Query context is marshaled by thrift. I think that's mostly it. But I guess where I'm going with this is, I think if we actually regen the thrift code gen more often than once, it wouldn't feel as weird and foreign. Like OSQuery Go, to my knowledge, generated the thrift bindings once when it was created and has never done it since.
I think.
Yeah, I mentioned I tried to regenerate the bindings with the latest version of Apache Thrift, and they changed a couple of things with the namespaces, but pretty much all the code was the same as the version we have.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is we don't change it often enough, so it's really weird. It's the same as the extensions, right? We didn't build the extensions as part of the release, so they started to bit rot. I think the same is true for thrift. We don't build the bindings, so it's like we're all like, how do we do this? Why do we have this overhead? I think if we actually updated the thrift spec and rebuilt things on any kind of cadence, it might feel more natural. And I think that's going to be true for any kind of code gen.
Oh, you mean using thrift more as not just as a transport, but so removing basically the JSON things, and
even if we kept it as just as a transport, it's static. We haven't touched it
because I don't think there's a need to do it. I mean,
I don't know.
What we would expect is thrift to be updated since the last time we did generate, and so.
But this is a thing that's come up in the past, is that our extensions API is very loose, right? It's not a very tight API. It's not very typed either.
Yeah. I mean,
so you could imagine creating a tighter API there, but I don't know. The advantage is we haven't had to fight very much when we upgrade things.
Though, I mean, I was thinking, because from where we started, the get overlapped issue, that, I don't know, maybe I'm personally talking also about another issue, which is, again, the readability of generated code, or the easiness. Easiness. Well, so I don't know how much that generated code is fitted to our use right now, and again, since that part of thrift is not changed and will not change, because I mean there's no update about it apparently. I mean, that's the problem. We will not solve that specific issue, but any kind of issue that we might find in thrift. And also, I don't think the generated code will really improve. I mean,
Probably
yeah,
not.
and then definitely we would not. We have to update or do some work on the Osquery extension interaction, but I think that's a bit another topic.
Well, sounds like mostly we think we should go back to squelching the error. And maybe someday we'll replace the rift. Oh, anyone want to say anything else about Drift? Cool. Next item, I stuck down here endpoint security because I know I was working on it with people and then I totally dropped the ball and I don't really remember the state of anything. And I was hoping someone could remind me.
So I have access to the Osquery Apple developer account now. Created the provisioning profiles. I have tested them locally. That I can install the provisioning profiles and it approves the endpoint security client. I think you had some issues getting to that point and we were supposed to catch up, and I think I got pulled into other stuff and I think you were a little busy as well. So the other thing is the CI work to make sure that our CI workers are on Catalina is almost done. I think
Part of that is blocked on me. That's a Wi-Fi test.
but and I think a couple of things that happened, like Big Sur came, and so I think all our attention was kind of spread across.
So if we wanted,
that's the quick recap.
so let's see. So you have access to the developer account and working profiles. I do not. I don't think I'm a blocker though. Wi-Fi. So to actually, if we wanted to actually start shipping endpoint security, we would need to fix the Wi-Fi test and move the build to a newer release.
That's right.
That is the prerequisite. Yep. And I think we would also need to, I'll have to take a look logging into the Osquery Apple ID, but I think you'll also need to create a developer ID certificate. And I think only the account owner can create that.
It's probably me. Who would I create it for? CI? Something else?
No, just so that we can actually create distribution profiles.
Yeah, I don't think I've created production distribution profiles.
Yeah. And I think we had briefly chatted about having CI its own profile, and I think the general consensus is that should be okay.
Because the CI would be the unprivileged kind of profile that can only run locally signed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, creating the distribution cert is just for the manual step of signing a distribution package and binary.
The discussion on the CI profile, I think, was whether or not it should use the same developer profile that so a thing I don't know, and this is theory, and it doesn't really matter because right now there is a sum total of 1.5 developers with access to a developer profile, is whether, you could imagine in a larger organization wanting each developer to have their own developer profile so that I can't create a Trojan binary and send it to Charvel and sort of do that. And similarly, you might want the CI to have their own developer profile so that if someone slips something into the CI build, we can't run it on our own machines. So it's all the same in some ways, right? Like, do we create one developer profile for CI and one for the human developers? I'll probably do that. I'll create a developer profile for CI, and that makes it harder for us to accidentally run untrusted code.
Yeah, we really only have two choices for CI. One is that one of us gives our credentials to the CI. Or
sorry, that's a different question. CI needs a profile, because it has to have its own profile. And then credential-wise, Apple's official policy is that all credentials must be tied to a human. I will create some human credentials for our CI. They will probably have my name on them and CI, because
okay.
I don't know. Last QueryCon, I chatted with some of the Apple reps there, and confirmed Apple's policy is that all Apple accounts be tied to a human. Humans may have more than one Apple account.
Okay.
The world I seem to have. So I don't know the right way to handle that. Okay, so we need to fix a Wi-Fi test. There's a PR for that. Where are we on that PR?
It's almost done. Then there was this annoying issue of comparing a list unordered fashion, having it compare in an ordered way and fail. It seems dumb, but my attention got moved, so I haven't finished that. But that's literally all that has to be done, is compare a list in an unordered fashion so that it always passes, and there you go.
Sorry, I'm IMing with someone else about potential topics in this meeting. Okay, well, try and do those things. So my Slack messages say that Alessandro upgraded RocksDB. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was breaking the build on the latest version of Visual Studio. So if you happen to try and build a query and it doesn't work, you can try to start from that commit or backport it if you need.
You said you kept Windows 7 compatibility?
Yeah, so the new RocksDB version relies on a couple of APIs to detect, to compare files. But this specific feature of the API is not available unless you upgrade to Windows 8. So we had to do a little workaround. And so we are still using the Windows 7 API set as defined in the CMake flags. But for this specific change, we are upgrading, we are trying to isolate a function so that it returns unsupported, which happens to be gracefully handled in the rest of the code. So luckily, we were able to keep Windows 7 support. For macOS, there are, and we also have some nice stats from Seth on how many Windows 7 users we have out in the wild, which is crazy. But for macOS, there's a small optimization that was made that we cannot enable on the caching because we are using an SDK that is not compatible when building on the CI. So Seth was thinking whether it makes sense to start building different versions of the agent. I don't have any data on this. I have no idea. I mean, we never had this optimization to begin with.
I think there are like two kind of linked questions here. So one question is kind of at what point do we drop support for older operating systems? And I don't think we've really had to grapple with that. We've kind of just tried to have support things as old as we can. but there's a couple of things that might be making this harder, right? RocksDB is starting to drop support for Windows 7. You said you did work and we could keep it now, but I don't know if that's going to be true next time. And then I kind of remember we've got some stuff coming down macOS. Like, I don't know if we can ship an endpoint security build to an older platform, or if that's basically going to bump up the minimum platform requirements for macOS.
So we have it at 10.11 currently. We need to move it up to 10.12. I don't remember if I already did, or does that still need to be done? Because with 10.12, you can do like compile and detect whether lib endpoint security dilib is there or not, and link or not link those symbols in based on what version you're running at runtime.
Mm-hmm. But you can't do that in 10.11?
Yeah, somehow I have not been able to make it work with 10.11, and my 10.11 VM doesn't boot anymore, and I haven't been able to install a new 10.11. I think it's just easier to move to 10.12.
What was 10.11 was El Capitan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I already have a PR to move it up to 10.12.
You do.
I'll have a look.
That's familiar.
Okay.
So El Capitan, that was before High Sierra?
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not sure how many people. This is probably a larger vendor question, because I feel like vendors probably have the most insight. So I took a quick look at the Collide customer base, and the number of Windows 7 machines was at about 0.5%, if I remember the number I said.
So
yeah, about
10.12 is Sierra, not even High Sierra, and that was released in 2016.
So I get
8.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love, like, I don't know if the Trail of Bits folk or if Zach have any insight into sort of their customer bases. Like, are there Windows 7 machines in the wild? Are there El Capitan machines in the wild?
I don't know about El Cap, but I know there are definitely older Windows machines in the wild. And I can say, you know, consulting clients that I worked with wanted to deploy Osquery to, you know, really old versions of Windows, 32-bit Windows, this kind of stuff. I think that, you know, for the core of our user base, they're probably not on those, but if we want to be able to pick up some of those fringes, then they definitely exist.
But then the question is how well we want to support it, because for me, Stefano, I would drop them as soon as they are end of life, because something that is not that radical. I mean, I would think you can give like in a year or so after they became end of life, so you gave any customer the ability to switch, and even then, and then it really becomes I mean, we have to answer who is going to support it. Who is going to support Windows 7? Or, I mean, obviously there are people who still want Windows XP or CentOS 5, for instance. I mean, the risk is always adding a drag to the project and more work to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that for sure, and I think that phasing out support for things that have been, you know, end of life by their vendors is a fair enough strategy to take, and folks who need to be able to address that, longer tail might have to just invest the resources into maintaining their own builds of Osquery or something like that. Plus, the older Osquery versions still work, right?
End of life is fuzzy though, because some vendors will offer extended support. So I think Windows 7 is still within its extended support period. So it's there for like, oh, you're an embedded vendor and like you absolutely can't upgrade this MRI machine. Sure.
Yeah, but then when you, the developer, needs to support it, you are going to pay the extended maintenance. Yeah. So again, if the customer, I don't know, if the customer comes and gives you the ability to work on those machines and have Osquery be updated or be fixed because there's something that doesn't work, okay, but then again, should we, as an open source project, be forced to support those?
My opinion,
since they are not maybe easily available. Yeah.
My opinion is that if we can support this without going too much out of our way to make it work, I think we should. And to define this, so if we can keep building RxDB so that it works, then it's good. But when we start to have to do heavy patching on the library itself, then maybe we should start consider whether we should still support the platform or not. It seems like with RxDB, for the time being, we are fine.
My only,
yeah, well,
I agree in theory. My problem is it makes it hard for us to make decisions, right? Because we're saying we should do it as long as it's reasonable, and we have no way to answer what's reasonable until we kind of go down the path, which isn't wrong, right? Because we kind of want to be able to support everything. So.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be nice to have some clear guidelines. And, you know, I mean, I think Osquery may be more valuable even for systems that are no longer receiving security updates and that kind of thing. So, like, there's good motivation for watching that. But, I mean, when I'm sitting here and listening to this, I hear Alessandro saying like, yeah, RxDB, we can still support it on Windows 7, it works. I'm hearing Charvel saying like, we got to move to Mac 10.12 from 10.11. And to me, it's like, you know, I think we can, I feel that we can trust the people, you know, the core developers here to make the decisions about what's worth it and not. So, I mean, my inclination is to say, yeah, support Windows 7 because Alessandro says it's fine, and let's bump to 10.12 because Charvel says this kind of needs to happen, and that's pretty, you know, really old version. And then we don't have to, you know, we don't have to have rigid rules about that. We'll just move forward with what's, you know, working for everyone.
I'm fine with that. I think I agree that seems to be where we're leaning. I'm just calling out like we don't. This rubric does not give us a clear answer other than talk about it and come to a conclusion.
And given whether special treatment because macOS devices have a good track record of being up to date. So it is probably easier to drop an older macOS version than it is to drop an old Windows version that will just stay there forever. And I don't want to limit people on like third party that want to use and integrate Osquery.
Yep, I agree. And Apple has also stopped signing installers for older macOS versions, so you can't even install them anymore unless you do a little bit of stripping out that requirement. But that's, yeah, you're running a modified OS at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I also agree with this Windows versus Mac distinction. I think that the reasonableness and the chances of running an older version of Windows are just higher than with Mac. And so my inclination would say until there's like a really big obstacle to doing it, let's try to support Windows 7, but bumping the Mac version as necessary to keep the development relatively easy there, I think it's gonna just cause fewer issues for people overall. Again, I'm not looking at the numbers, and it sounds like, of everyone on this call here right now, Seth, you might be in the best position to be able to see the numbers and know, but I guess I'm just in agreement with everyone.
Let me see if I can pull Macos numbers. I am not convinced that the Collide endpoint agent supports El Capitan right now. I'm actually not even convinced Osquery supports El Capitan. I think I tried running it and it just like exploded, and I was like, whatever, I don't care. But let me see if I can get a quick.
We're still targeting a 10.11 SDK, right?
Yes, but I didn't debug it because I don't have any El Capitan users.
Yeah, oh, we don't either. I think the user base moves quick.
I think there's I think El Capitan was not a terminal release. Like I think everything that could take El Capitan could be upgraded to Sierra and then High Sierra. Might not have been a good idea, but I think Apple did that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
About adding
there are 9 El Capitan machines across the Collide user base.
Yeah, another thought that I just had. There may be less Windows 7 machines around, but they could be more high-value targets compared to something else. But yeah, I was wondering whether we recently made a pull request to disable BPF at configuration time, so it's not compiled in. And we could maybe start thinking about implementing this for all the tables, so we could more easily disable things that, for example, wouldn't work on Windows 7, so we can keep targeting it. Right now, I think we don't really have mostly anything that doesn't work on Windows 7, except maybe the NTFS journaling table. But maybe
when you talk about that, how would that work sort of in practice, right? Would that just be different? Would we cut a release for an older thing, or would these basically be flags at runtime to whether or not to go down a code path that we know is going to panic on an older OS?
Ideally, it would be nice to detect what we can use at runtime, but sometimes it's not as easy. And we can not only solve this dependency issue by disabling it, but we can also generate binaries that do not contain things we do not want, which is something that we have seen in the past.
So the biggest, I know I've suggested that we can generate like older binaries and newer binaries. I just don't want to, because we don't have, like there's a lot there we've never done. So it's like a big can of worms. We don't really have it's like, I don't know, we'd have to create like new distribution sections, and like, how do we think about, we've just always ever had the Windows binary, not like the old binary, so it's just, there's a lot of process that we would need to create to distribute newer and older.
Create different releases. It would just give integrators and manufacturers to disable things.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense. Like if there's a documented way to disable things and build your own custom build for whatever weird platform you need to target, then that's great. People can still get it, but the project can say, yeah, like we're doing what we can for you, but we don't need to do every possible permutation of compatibilities in our published releases.
I mean, a million years ago, we talked about the idea of having a really small core where more and more things were pulled in by extension. But it's not today. Okay, so Windows 7 we're keeping for now. Mac OS 10.11 we're probably going to drop, and there's probably even a PR for that, so we can take discussion to that PR. I don't have anything else on older platforms, and it sounds like we mostly hit consensus. Anyone else? Cool. Okay, next item. Next Osquery release. When was our last release? Let's see.
September, if I recall right. End of
October
Actually,
5th,
no,
so end of September.
October.
So end of September, and so our next theorized release should be the end of November. What's going on for there? Let's see. We could just cut one. Keep to the same cadence. So this would be 460, and I can edit its due date to be the end of November, right? We like that theory. Kind of bumping up into the middle of all the holidays. Do people want to cut a 460 in November, or do you want to do it at the end of the year, December?
We probably need some time to test the ARM build because we have introduced a couple of new libraries. So we have libcap, we have dbus, expat, and then we have the BPF libraries. So I'm going to have to test them and make sure they still work if we want to release the ARM version with everything else. I need some time to make sure it works.
So does that mean you would want to cut a release and then do testing post-release or testing pre-release?
So I don't even know whether it builds right now. That's the main issue.
I'm supposed to try and get stuff running on Gravitron machines too.
Yeah, but it's hard. How do we make it work? I mean, how do we connect it to the CI? So yeah, I'll carve out some time and.
Well, there is the agent.
But does it work on the Graviton machines? Can we connect it to? Oh, yes, I didn't know about it.
I think the problem though was that the machine itself is not VM, so or at least we don't have the framework to kill it and restart it, etc.
So there's a little bit of prior art here from the Envoy project. The Envoy project runs an agent in AWS groups. So a machine spins up, runs the agent, connects, runs a job, and then destroys the machine, so on and so forth. I think the biggest thing that keeps making me leery is that like all of the GitHub and Azure docs on this stuff are basically just like, there is no isolation. You know, this effectively gives CI high-level access to your local machine, and by extension, any code running in CI, which I think is fine in the context of an AWS security group. I don't really see another route, and you know, our AWS account, to the extent it exists, is reasonably well partitioned. So it's probably fine, but it's definitely kind of moving off of the recommended path.
Can we use Docker inside? Okay.
Or to the extent we can, but I think you're basically running through QEMU and stuff. I don't think you get like real Docker. I'm not sure, but I don't think you're getting real Docker in there.
was thinking about the integration. The main question is that I haven't seen, I haven't seen a way from the Azure pipeline to be notified that, like, so you don't have something that you can make the Azure pipeline send to communicate with AWS, and so that AWS know that it has to start a VM. So
I think they just sit and run, and that means you burn CPU waiting. I haven't played enough to see if there's anything that would support like using serverless to spin up the VM versus just having it sitting idle. I feel like even just sitting idle would be a step forward.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, maybe I was thinking how you can integrate the life cycle of the VM. So you said there is prior art, but I wasn't. So we missed the initial trigger. So when the VM starts, though effectively maybe we can have them running and then have our code tell it to die.
So
after
the
build.
existing Envoy setup basically runs one job and then kills the machine, and it's running on a I forget the EC2 name, but like a host group that ensures minimum availability. So there's always at least a spare running, and then the spare launches the agent on boot. Azure communicates with that agent, and it says, "Okay, time to do a thing," and the machine then takes itself out of the pool, does its thing, and dies on the side, and the pool spins up a new machine.
I see. So there is already a kind of integration from Azure pipelines to that thing, because I didn't see any API for. I mean, I only know that the agent they wrote can communicate with the Azure pipeline, but I didn't know if there was some API to receive the trigger from the CI that you need to do something.
A little different. There's no trigger to do something. It's just it always ensures a minimum availability, and then it dies after one, right? So you fake it. But I think in terms of releases, the question is, do people want to cut a release tag at the end of the month and the next month? Right. I'd be down for cutting 4.6.0 in 6 days.
Does anyone have anything they're trying to get in they need more time for? If not, then I'd say let's just cut it.
Let's see. Checking to see if we've, is there actually a good hunk of commits? Yeah, there's like 40 things in here since last time. It's got to be some of that's worth releasing.
Yeah. Well, we have the notes that we just put at the top of the office hours. Those were some things we did.
Okay, well, let's try and cut 4.6.0 end of the month. And if we hold it a few days for new stuff, that's cool. If we cut 4.6.0 and it doesn't work on ARM, we'll cut 4.6.1, like whatever.
Should we update the packaging stuff before the release?
No, because that's a breaking change for people.
Okay.
So someone reported to us a potential security vulnerability on macOS. This doesn't seem so severe to me that I won't talk about it here, where Osquery installs into user local, which Homebrew smacks to being user writable, and then the launch daemon configuration starts it as root. So there's kind of a local privilege escalation from here. It seems pretty small to me, because if you're running, if you already have permission on user local, you probably have root access on your machine. But I could imagine a situation where that's not true. I think it would be reasonable to have Osquery not install into user local. There's always an argument that user local is really local to the machine, and like vendors shouldn't be mucking in it. So we should probably move ourselves to opt Osquery or something. But I don't want to do that in a minor release because I think that that's a breaking change for people. So I think that would be a good thing to hang on an Osquery 5. I also don't think it's such a big security issue that I'm like, oh God, we got to do something, right? So.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I have to run now, but I'm on board with that proposal that it waits till 5.0.
Someone wants to open an issue or a PR or something and shove it in the 5.0 placeholder. I'll probably not stick this into the minutes since security-ish.
Huge thanks to Bradley for reporting this.
Okay, well, it's been about an hour. Anyone have anything else? If not, I think we call it. Nice to see everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
I think so. But
Cool.
happy
Same.
holidays.
Bye.
See you, Zach.
Bye.